Hi everybody, Ian Bremmer here, and a quick take to kick off your week. We are entering the second month of the Iran war. I certainly hope we won't be talking about a third month, but I don't have a lot of confidence around that. The economic implications are becoming more evident to all globally as the humanitarian impact is becoming more devastating, particularly Lebanon now, which we don't talk as much about. We've got some 1/5 of the entire population in the country has been displaced as a consequence of that war. We've got hundreds and hundreds dead. We've got thousands dead in Iran. We've got some 13 Americans, servicemen and women that have been killed, as well as a few hundred casualties. Those numbers are all, of course, sadly going up. Israel has a strategy for this war. It's very clear. It is to decimate both the military capabilities of the Iranians and also to end the regime, a regime that believes that Israel does not have a right to exist, and Israel wants this regime out of existence. They prefer regime change with a friendly government, but it would also be okay with fragmentation, with chaos, with civil war. They just want this regime out. That is a strategy. That is what they have wanted for a long time. That's what they're fighting for. Iran has a strategy. The Iranian strategy is to stop the Israelis and the Americans from continuing to threaten them with mowing the grass every few months, every few years, and reduce their military capabilities, reduce their nuclear capabilities, and threaten their leadership. This last time was a bridge too far from Iran's perspective, killing, assassinating much of their top leadership, military, political, and theological. They want to show that they have the patience to outlast the hardship and to cause more damage regionally and globally than the United States is prepared to tolerate. That is the Iranian strategy, and maintaining not necessarily control over the strait, but at least the ability to disrupt the strait going forward is essential to that strategy. The United States, as best as I can see, does not yet have a strategy. They had a strategy when they went to war. That strategy was you kill the supreme leader who's been stopping the U.S. from having a successful negotiation. You display massive military force and destroy a bunch of military capabilities, and the new regime will want to work with you. That was the strategy. That strategy failed almost immediately, and now they are trying to figure out what the new strategy is. Certainly part of the new strategy is opening the Strait of Hormuz, which has an irony to it because, of course, the strait was open before the war started. Now it's not, and now they need to get back to that status quo ante. Is it regime change? Well, originally it was, and Trump said he refused to work with the new supreme leader. That would not be acceptable. But Trump is now saying that he's having good, though not direct, engagements with some of the Iran leaders. Here we're talking mostly about the Iranian foreign minister, which, by the way, is the same as the old Iranian foreign minister who was involved in negotiations directly and indirectly with Jared Kushner and with Steve Witkoff, but that's already apparently something that can be sold as regime change-ish. Trump says that he wants the oil and might take Karg Island, which is how the oil gets out of Iran, but hasn't said that he will, said that he might. But there's no question in my mind that when the United States sends thousands and thousands of additional troops, ground-ready troops, expeditionary forces into the region, that they are intended to be used. This is not a scouting expedition. This is part of a war going to a new phase where there will be ground forces involved. There will be raids at a minimum of coastal areas, of islands, and maybe eventually the capture of Karg. And I have to say, I think it is unconscionable that the commander-in-chief of the American Armed Forces would send thousands of American servicemen and women into combat without clearly telling the American people why he's doing it, what they're there for, what the purpose of the war is. The purpose of the war was not an imminent threat to the United States from Iran. That's clearly not the case. The original purpose of the war was a war of choice, to go in, to escalate, and get a big win. That has not occurred. And the purpose of the war can't be to avoid an embarrassing loss for the president. That is not a reason to send men and women into combat. If the purpose of the war is that you have to now have ground forces to reopen the strait, he needs to tell the American people that. If the purpose of the war is that he wants to take the oil, because the U.S. has the largest oil production in the world and now has control over Venezuela with the largest natural reserves in the world, and then he wants to control Iran's oil export because that would allow the U.S. to weaponize oil in the way that the Chinese are weaponizing critical minerals and rare earths. That is a coherent reason. It's not a reason I would support. I don't think it's a reason the American people would support, but it is a reason, and it needs to be articulated. Right now, what we have is incoherence. We have an American president that says 5 different things pretty much every day, whose threats and escalations unilaterally have been just as quickly unilaterally walked back, and he is literally all over the map. Some of it because he's frustrated that he doesn't have a win and doesn't know how to get one. Some of it because he doesn't actually understand the policy of the region and isn't willing to listen sufficiently to those around him that do. And some of it is because I don't think he cares that much. I think he cares more about himself than he does about the country. And it's painful to say these things because you want the president to be successful. You want this war to not be for naught. Now, what I want isn't relevant here, of course. It's what is and what's happening. But there's no question in my mind that this is already a very unpopular war in the United States. But for now, it remains popular among the MAGA supporters of Trump, not among independents, and he needs them for the midterms, and I think the midterms are sunk for President Trump, and I think he knows that because the internal briefings on where oil prices are going and for how long and what that means for gas and all the rest, that is all baked into the pie. But he still has support from MAGA, and he certainly sees those polls more frequently than he sees others. But I don't believe that as the cost becomes higher, and as troops are deployed, which goes directly against what Trump said he was going to do when he was in office, and indeed is the reason that he was saying you shouldn't vote for Kamala Harris because then you'll have wars, then you'll be sending troops, then you could have World War III, but not with Trump. Here you now see Americans ready to be deployed in a major military operation involving the entire Gulf and so many countries, and you don't have a president who has provided a clear reason for doing so. The most consequential decision of his presidency, he owes it to those who vote in the United States, not to mention his allies and the rest, but first and foremost, he owes it to the American people to explain and justify that behavior. And thus far, I haven't seen that at all. That's where we are. That's my view. Some will agree, some will disagree, and I'll keep telling you what I think. And we'll talk to you all real soon.